Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Jonathan Kaplan from Compass Group. Compass Group is the world's largest food service provider, and we cook breakfast, lunch, and dinner for lots of companies all over the world, including here in California. One of our clients asked us about a year ago to work with a small NGO in California called the Lexicon of Sustainability to see if we could convene the industry to tackle the problem of single-use plastic. And we pulled together a number of the big players in food service and a number of NGOs and experts who are working in this space. And we asked the question, what can we do together pre-competitively to really tackle this issue? And we had some great people around the table, and we realized that we were all getting bombarded with marketing claims about alternatives to plastic. As the plastic crisis became more visible to our leadership and to our clients, we were getting lots of requests for alternatives, but we didn't really know what to do. And we were struggling with questions like, should we switch to aluminum cans? Should we buy glass bottles? Is plastic coated fiber always better? Is reusables, are they better, or do they actually use more energy and water? And when we looked around, we found that, to our surprise, there was not really a common yardstick to measure all these different options in a consistent way. Any trade association could tell us that their product was better. You can find lots of literature showing that aluminum is better, or glass is better, or plastic is better, but there's surprisingly little out there to sort of measure everything with the same yardstick, if you will. So we decided to build a scorecard and to see if we could get alignment on how to measure sustainability for all these materials. And we decided that there's a huge opportunity here if we could get alignment, create an industry standard for how to measure, make it really easy to measure, and make it widely available to the industry. And our group also was very committed to this idea of showing the benefits of reusables. Using reusable foodware containers is not always easy in the food service business, especially now that we're in the middle of this pandemic. But we wanted the industry to see what the environmental and health trade-offs are of using a washable, reusable container compared to disposable foodwares. So we landed on 6 different sustainability metrics. Carbon, which is carbon, this is sort of a life cycle metric, the amount of carbon used per liter of food or beverage packaged. Water, that's an indicator of how much water was consumed through the life cycle of the product to make and dispose of it. Sustainable sourcing looks at the amount of recycled content in the material, and if it's a biomass product, whether or not there's, it was sustainably sourced biomass, and we have a number of certifications that we rely on for that. Recoverability was important for our group. Recoverability is the material's potential to be recycled, reused, recycled, or composted. So that metric looks at things like whether or not recycling infrastructure is available for that material, and whether or not the product is designed in such a way that it can actually be recycled. Here in the US, for example, PET bottles are fairly widely recycled, but PET thermoforms, other shapes made from PET are not. And then plastic pollution, very important metric. And again, we were all sort of drawn to the table by concern about plastic. This metric is a life cycle estimate of plastic leakage through each stage of manufacturing, using, and disposing of the product. And then the last metric is the environmental health metric, or the chemicals of concern metric. And I know this is a topic of particular interest to this group, so I did a little breakout of this metric. The approach that we're taking here, which is really being led by the Food Packaging Forum and others, so Jane's had a significant role in developing this, but the approach that we're taking is really a hazard-based approach. The idea is to avoid a number of known high-risk chemicals in the manufacture of the material. So we've actually developed 3 different lists of toxic chemicals. The first list is created by the Environmental Defense Fund, and that's a shorter list here to the right. And then there are 2 other lists which get to be much longer. One is by the Food Safety Alliance for Packaging, which is an industry association, and then the Food Packaging Forum's Food Contact Chemical Database, which is a list of about 600 chemicals, will be used as the 3rd and highest tier. So the idea is that you would identify that or determine that none of these chemicals have been added to the product, and the more chemicals you can avoid, the higher score you'll get. And then the claim, the integrity of the claim is also measured, and as you see here, we have a hierarchy for sort of self-reported all the way through third-party verified. So how does this work? A user would come to our website, you would identify the type of container you're interested in, and let's say you wanted to see cups, you would then get a list of all the different cups which are typically used in our industry, and you'd see the scores for each of those metrics. And you'd also see a summary score, which is just the average of the first 6 scores. Now, this is not real data, this is a mock-up, so you would not see green scores for every single material. For carbon, for example, you would see a green score maybe for a few, and then lots of other orange, yellow, and red scores for the others. And you can also customize each of these containers, because we know that the details really matter. If your product can be recycled locally, that's going to change the score. If you've got a sustainable certification, if your product is designed to be recycled, if it's reusable, the number of reuses, all those things matter. So the user will be able to go see a very generic list of containers, and then go in and customize any one of those to see how the scores will change. And then, as I mentioned, the availability of local composting and recycling is also important. If you don't know this, you can use the US average. Again, this is a US-based tool. But if you do know what can be actually recycled locally at point of use, you can specify that here. So I know I'm under a very strict timeline, and I'm going to wrap up there, but I'd be happy to take questions in the small group. Thanks so much for having me here.